Hello guys, welcome to this YouTube channel, and in this episode of Learn HTML and CSS project, we're going to be creating this login screen. If this sounds like something you're interested in, stick to the end. So, to make sure everyone's on the same page, we're starting with an empty project with the icons over here. This is the icons we'll be using, and then the image. So to get these icons and image, you go over to icons8.com, you search for the icon you want, and then you choose the one you want. And then for the image, you come to freepik.com, you search for 3D character with iPad, then you download the one you want. So let's get started. First of all, you create your index.html, and then an exclamation mark, which is the emit abbreviation for this HTML boilerplate. So inside the body element, we create a div. Let's call this a div. So a div is basically an element for containing multiple elements together. And with this div, let's give it a class of container. So a class is used to group elements together. So in this container div, let's create another div, and let's give this a class of image. And then let's create another div, and let's give it a class of login area. And then save, Control S to save. So let's run this. As you can see, it is blank, and that is what it's supposed to be. So let's create a CSS file here. Let's name it style.css. And inside the head element, let's create a link to our CSS file. Link, and then here we type in the name of your CSS file, which is style.css right here. So once we save, so CSS is used to style the HTML element, and this symbol means that it would give a style to the entire HTML root file. So let's say a margin. So margin is the area around an element, and then padding is an area around inside an element. And let's do a box sizing. Let's set it to border box, right? So let's style this container div. To style a class, you type a dot and the class name. Let's give it a width of 100 view width, which means 100% of the width of the screen, and then a height of 100 view height, which means 100% of the screen height. Let's set a border to make everything visible. Let's give it a width of 2 pixels, solid, and a color red. And then for the class image, let's set the width to 50% of its parent element. See, since the image element is inside this container, so 50% of this would be, so setting the width to 50% would take 50% of its parent element. Let's set the height to 50% as well. In order to visualize it, let's give it a border of 2 pixels, solid, and then purple. You can choose any color you'd want. So, and then to style the login area class, repeat the same process and then give it a width of 50% and a height of 50%. Okay. In order to visualize it, let's give it a border of 2 pixels, solid, and then blue. So let's save and see the output. So this is the output with the image here and then the login area at the bottom here. But we want it to be in a horizontal direction. So inside the styling of the container, we set the display to flex and then the flex direction. We set it to row and that would make it in a row direction. So the height, let's change the height to 100% of its parent. Yeah, 100% of its parent. So now inside the image div, inside the image div, we add the image element. So the image element is used to add images to your website. Let's set, and then you put in the path, the location of the file, of the image. So dot forward slash, and then you select your image. And with that, the image, suppose, see we have the image, but the image is too wide to this. So inside this, we edit the image element. So inside the image class, the image element, so we edit that and then set the width and then the height of this image. So let's set the width to 100% of its parent and then the height to 100%. And then let's set the object fit. So object fit is used to make sure that the image fills the entire container. So let's set it to cover. And then let's set the border radius. So border radius is used to give an element a curve at the borders. So let's set it to 10 pixels and then save. So let's see the output. So as we can see, this is it now. So now let's go over to the login area. Let's create a key element, which is a paragraph for creating paragraphs in a HTML. No. So the next thing we're doing is the login area. So let's create the not a member register now, which can be done using the paragraph element. So p no, and let's create a span. Span is used to contain part of a paragraph in the same line. Yeah. Register now. The next thing we do is create another div. And this div, let's give it a class of area. and inside this there, let's create an H2. So H2 is used to create headings. So then, in this, let's say hello again with an exclamation mark. And let's create another P element here. Let's say welcome back. And within the same login area, let's create another div with the same class of area. Let's create an input type of text. So input type text is used to create a text box in the HTML website. Let's set the ID to text. So ID is used to give a unique name to an element. Let's set the placeholder to enter your user name, or simply enter username. So once we save it and see the output, as you can see, this is the placeholder, enter a username. We have the not a member register now. We have everything right here. And the next input is the password. So let's create another input of type password. Let's remove that one here. Let's set the ID to password and then the placeholder to enter password. Let's create another. Let's create another paragraph with the text forgot password. That is this side of the login. And let's give this an ID of forgot password. Once this is done, let's save and see the output. So this is it now, and as you can see, it is not styled. So let's go over to the CSS to give this element some style. So this span right here, let's give it an ID of register. So let's go over to the CSS to style it. So the login area, we have a display of flex as well, and the flex direction will be column, and we align the items, the contents of this container, we align them in the center. Next, so we go over to the login area and select the paragraph element, the first paragraph element, so which is the first child. So we select the first paragraph element of this login area. And let's set the margin. So margin is the area, is the white space around an element. So the first parameter of this margin is the top. And the next one is the left, and then 0 for the bottom, and then 0 for the right. And then align cell. Aligning this element on its own, let's set it to flex end. That means at the end of the flex. The next thing we do is style the area class. And this we give it a margin top, just the margin top of 50 pixels, and a display of flex as well, and a flex direction column, and then the align items we set it to center. Let's save that and see the output. As you can see, this is it now. We have it at the top right. We have everything here at the center. So the next thing we have to do is style the input. So the input is the text area and then the password area. So to style this, we say the input element. Let's give it a padding. A padding is the white space inside the element of 14 pixels. As you can see, it creates a white space inside this text box. Let's give it a margin of 10, a margin of 10 pixels, and a border radius to curve the borders. Let's give it a border radius of 8 pixels. Let's save that. So as you can see, the borders are being curved, and then the margin gives it a space around it. So the next thing is, let's remove the border so it has no border. So the border is this black line surrounding the input. So you can remove that by setting the border to none. And then let's give it a width of 250 pixels, an outline of none. And let's give it a box shadow. It's simply giving the inputs a shadow around it. So the first parameter, 0, let's set to 0, which is the horizontal offset. And then let's set the vertical offset to 4 pixels. And let's set the blur radius to 6 pixels. And then the color, RGBA. So RGBA stands for red, green, blue, and alpha. So let's give it a red of 10, green 3, blue 3, and then the alpha. Alpha is the opacity of the color. Let's save. So once we save, let's see the output. You can see this is the output now. We have it right here. Let's change the background color of our container. Let's change the background color to white. And then we can set the color by using this color picker right here. Let's set it to something like this. Yeah, so this is much better. The next thing we do is style this right here. So in order to style it, we need to select it by the ID. So selecting an ID, you bring a hashtag and then the ID name. Let's set the color to RGB, red, green, and blue. Let's set the red to 100 on the green, and then 248 for the blue. Let's save and see the output. So save. Oh, our yeah. Let's save and see the output, which is right here. So the next thing we need to do is create this buttons right over here, the sign in button. So for the sign in button, it's also going to be an input. So below this pop-up password, we create an input of type button. Let's set the value to, the value is what should be written inside the button. Let's set it to sign in. Let's give it an ID of sign in. Let's save this and see the output. You can see we have the button right here. And since the button is also an input, it takes the styling of the input. So we can change the color of the button by selecting it using the ID. So ID sign in, and then we can set the background color to RGB of something like 252 for the red, 141 for the green, and then 141 for the blue. Then let's also give this a box shadow of 0 pixels, 4 pixels, and then 6 pixels for the blur. And the color, let's set it to 250 for the red, 21 for the green, 21 for the blue, and then 0.3 for the alpha. The next thing to do is, let's see the output. So we want, when the mouse pointer hovers over it, we want the color to change. So we can do this by setting the sign in, and then and then sign in, and then colon, and then we hover function. And with this, we set the background color to a lighter version of it. So RGBA 252 for the red, 141 for blue, 141 for green, and then 0.8 for the alpha. Let's set the transition. The transition is the time it should take to transition between the, the regular color and then this color right here. So for the transition, let's set it to 0.1 seconds, and then all, and then let's set it to ease in, out. Let's save this and see the output. So now you see, as we hover the mouse pointer over it, the color changes. So let's change the color of the text in here to white. So this, you can go for color. Let's set it to white. Save. Let's see the output. See, it is white right here. Before we continue, let's create this white space between the forgot password and then the sign in button. So to achieve this, we can set a margin for the forgot password. So let's set a margin for this sign in button. Let's set the margin to just the margin top. We set the margin top to 50 pixels, and that should create a white space over there. So the next thing is creating these buttons right here. So we can achieve this by first of all the paragraph and then the icons. So for the paragraph we use the P element and then type or what we want it to display, and then let's create a div for the element and let's give it a class of row, and inside this div we create three image elements since we have three icons. So the first one will be the apple, and then this is the path of the file. Then the next one, the src stands for the source of the image, which is the location or the path. So dot forward slash, and then we select our image, then img dot forward slash select our image, and let's save to see the output. As you can see, have it right here. We have the images right over here. So to give these styles, we go over to the CSS file to style our icon. So for the style, we first do for our row class. And for selecting a class, dot and then the class name. So the row, we give it a margin at the top of 12 pixels, and then a width of 300 pixels, and a display flex, and we justify the content to space evenly. That means you should create a space between each image right over here. So this space here, and then it creates the spaces evenly. Next, for the images inside this row, we select them by first the row and then the image. So this means it should go over into the row class and then select all the image elements inside this row class. So for this, we give it a background color of white and a padding for each 10 pixels. So the padding creates a white space inside its container, and a border radius to curve the borders, 10 pixels, and a box shadow to give it a shadow, let's 0.4 pixels. So 0 on the horizontal axis, 4 pixels on the vertical, and 6 pixels for the blur radius. And the color RGBA. So let's just copy the color right over here. Let's copy this box shadow. Let's paste it over here. Save. Let's see the output. You can see we have the output over here. So now let's remove the borders we drew around the containers. So let's remove this border here, this one over here, over here, save, and there we have it. So for this image right here, let's create a margin around it to give it some white space around it. So in order to achieve that, inside this container, let's give it a padding of 10 pixels. That means it will draw the padding around each content inside of it. So let's save and see the output. You can see this is it. It creates a white space all around it. So thank you for watching this to the end.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you have any questions, leave it in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.